Hey everybody, this is Adam and welcome to the Productivity Academy. Today I'm going to be talking about a question from a user. This comes from Angela and she's looking at a way to better plan out events. She's working full-time, but also does some part-time outreach and specifically working with some kids and got to prepare lessons, train volunteers, events, and all that type of stuff. So probably this is familiar to a lot of people. I mean, you could apply this to you have a job and you got to take care of stuff at your home, right? You've got to take care of your kids. Maybe you're working another part-time job or you have, all sorts of stuff going on. And this was good too. She said that she also works with pen and paper. So I know a lot of us do. I use both and I highly recommend both, but I'm going to be talking about using my calendar. So let's get into that. But real quick, if you want to, you can subscribe by clicking below. Also, right there, I'll have a sign-up link. The reason I'm doing this video is partially because Angela is signed up to the super awesome Productivity Academy email list. But I do send out some special stuff to them. And you can sign up on the link below and you get some special stuff from time to time. And I'll just leave it at that. So first of all, though, diving into this. So I'm going to kind of spell out her specific situation again, and then we'll kind of go into it. So working a full-time job, part-time doing these lessons, training volunteers, events. She's having trouble planning and doesn't want to keep getting stuck in that crunch at the end. And so what can she do? Ooh, still working on getting over this cold. So from my point of view, I think there's two big things. Obviously, right, there's a lot of solutions to this. As far, though, as what I see as being the main issues here. So hearing that, that crunch, or I'd want to stop, worrying about things at the last minute. That means to me that obviously there's some prior planning that needs to go on there. And the big one for me that you'll always hear me harp about is a daily review. Okay, so I would say for anybody in this position, if you're not already doing it, again, to me, it doesn't matter if you're working at a job, if you're self-employed, or whatever it is you're doing, you can make time for this, or rather you have to make time for this. It could be 10 minutes, it could be an hour, but at some point in your morning before you generally start doing other things, that you sit down and you either write it out or you go to Todoist or you go in Evernote or whatever you do and you say, okay, here's my day, here's my top 5 things I want to accomplish. Let's see, here's my action plan for the day, and it doesn't have to be an agonizing detail, but it does force you to go through and say, okay, did I have any loose items? That's part of it from yesterday that I need to go through. Did I forget anything? Are there any tasks that I didn't get done that I need to add to today or maybe schedule for later in the week? That's the time you do that, as well as going through your calendar and saying, okay, how do I want to schedule my day out, or where can I fit things in? Or just as importantly, to say, oh, wow, I've got, all of this going on today. There's no way I can get all this done. I need to go ahead and, put some of this later in the week. Okay, so as soon as you start doing that, I promise you, you're going to see some pretty big changes. And then once you do that on a daily basis and you have that under control, give yourself a few weeks, I would start doing a weekly review. And you can choose the day. I choose Mondays. It just works for me. Some people like doing it Sundays before they start the week, where you go through and instead of just doing a daily review, then you look out through your week, okay, and say, okay, what do I have going on that I need to prepare for? And especially in the case where you're doing something like you're working with people or you're doing training lessons, that's probably going to be pretty important up front. All right. So then the second thing that I think is really important, and a shout out to the Panda Planner. I took this idea from them, but basically it's just, it's not super important, but you can see on there, it's just a calendar. But that's going to be really important where you can start setting some deadlines. So if you're a paper and pencil person, get on your calendar and start putting in what are your deadlines. Okay, and this is the second important part, I think, where you can work backwards. Okay, and you say, let's say, like today is the 8th of March. We say, okay, on the 15th of March, there's a training or a presentation that needs to be done. Okay, well, obviously you don't want to think about that on the 14th of March. You want to start today and break it up. And you know best how this goes. I have no idea exactly what you're doing, but we could say maybe it's going to take 30 minutes to do an outline, another hour to create the actual presentation, and then another 30 minutes to maybe delegate it or communicate it to somebody. So, okay, you say, wow, I've got about 2 hours of work there. Maybe I don't have a 2-hour block, but I can break this up into the chunks and go ahead and schedule them on this calendar. And then every day as you do your daily review, you look and see, okay, which items do I have? Okay, I've got that one I need to get done today, get it done. Or because you've now done your planning, you can say, oh, geez, I need to push it back. But thankfully, I have enough time instead of, I fully understand that last minute freak out where you're like, oh my gosh, I've got to do, 3 hours of work and I have 2 hours. And then, when you keep doing that, things just get kind of crazy. So that is where I would start with this. Definitely can go into a lot more detail on this, but I think that to review real quick, the daily planning will help you. Okay, that helps you identify what's going on that day and how you can schedule your day out, and then moving into a weekly review too, where you can start looking longer term. But then also using that calendar, and that's part of your daily review. So go ahead and when you know something's coming up, get out your calendar, write it down, and then backtrack from that point to, okay, how can I break this up into something manageable? And then every day you're doing that as part of your daily review. You're consulting your calendar and making sure that those things match up and saying, okay, well, on my calendar, do I have part of a task today or part of a project? Okay, I can take care of it. Or you add something to that for maybe a later day. I think that'll really help. And there are apps you can use it. If you're purely pencil or pen and paper, you can certainly do this. You just print yourself out a little calendar. You can do it on a 3x5 card, do whatever you want. You got to be consistent, but you can also mix and match. I do both personally. I don't like keeping a calendar. Like I use my paper one just for jotting down quick notes, but I use Google Calendar and I find that to be really effective, and it helps me because I work on a computer for most of the day. Again, your experience or your needs may vary, and so it's using whatever you have close at hand, and that's going to help you. To add on to this, I think that there's a really, really important second part to this is processes. Okay, so it's not just being more productive, but it's using tools and methods to become better at handling these processes. So let's say you're doing something like you're preparing lessons, you're training volunteers, and planning events. For most people, once you do those once or twice, right, there's going to be those similarities that come up every time. So you can really come out with a literal process for this. And sure, from time to time things change or there's little differences, but overall there's, the same steps. Let's say you're doing an event, and every event you need to, go buy 100 plates, 100 forks, 100 cups, and you need to let these 3 people know about the dates and times. Okay, that's obviously a very simple event, but that might be, an outline for like a group picnic or something. Those things need to happen every time. So what you can do, again, if you're using pen and paper, you can create a folder or a file or wherever you want to keep it. Initially just write it out. Write down what are the steps. Every time I do this, what am I doing? And take that time, that very first time, just to write it out. And then start to refine it. You can keep this on pen and paper, but again, this is where for me, I like doing it in something like Trello, but it could be a Word document, it could be a spreadsheet. I'll let you decide, whatever it is that works best for you. But you get that down so that then when you go and you have to do this again, it doesn't take you as much time. You've got that framework right there, and you can just go down it. So maybe it's on pen and paper, and you can just go down this and say, oh, wow, okay, I've already done, I've got the outline. I just need to do this. Okay, got that. That's going to take me 30 minutes. Put it into your calendar or whatever you want to do. And then say, okay, this time I've got these extra things. I can now take care of it. And that really keeps you not only from spending a lot more time on it, but also from wasting that time thinking through it. Like, oh, gosh, I know I've got to do something. What is it? Am I forgetting anything? What's going on there? And so having these processes is great. And even more than that, eventually you can start to delegate these, right? Because now you've got a process that's repeatable, and it's not just up here, where you're trying to remember everything. Now you've got it written down, and now you can start to hand that off. Okay, again, with pen and paper, you can photocopy it once you've written it out all nice and hand it off, literally hand it off to somebody and say, hey, I need you to take care of this. Here's the steps. Just follow this checklist, and, it'll be taken care of. And so, people will really appreciate that because instead of, you giving them this, kind of vague task, you've given them something that's very easy to follow. And then you can plug somebody else into it. So they can take care of it, or if it doesn't work out with that person, you can get another person to do it. So hopefully this is helpful to Angela and other people. But that's my look at it. So obviously you can go into more detail from here, but I think this is a good start and a good attack plan for anybody. Really, this is important stuff. So again, I like it because it allows me to do what I want to do. Because when I look at this, I'm not just thinking, oh man, this is neat. I want to use Trello because I want to have a really cool process. I look at it like, wow, this is awesome. I'm going to write this process down so that I can save a couple hours over the next couple weeks. And then over the couple months, I may be able to hand like entire projects off to people and be doing, either spending my time differently, like reading a book, you know what I mean? Or going for a run or working on a new business project. And that stuff wouldn't be possible if you're not able to free up your time to work on some higher level stuff. So anyways, hopefully this was helpful. If you want to, please subscribe. You can click on the buttons, or by now they might be hovering around. Also, if you'd like to get additional help or find out anything else about productivity, processes, all that good stuff, you can click on the link below in the description and just sign up. Be happy to have you and join the group and find out some more information about all this stuff. Thanks.